Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be discussing what to present with your projects for the Innovators Challenge 2024. We will be discussing the important bits of information that you must put in your presentation to get the highest mark possible. When presenting, it's a good idea to start with your project topic. What is your project and why did you choose it? Having a reason for choosing the project will show judges that you thought about your project and you didn't just choose the first one you thought of. As we discussed in previous videos, the main theme for this year is natural disasters. For this reason, it is important to tell judges what natural disaster you are focusing on and to give them any research that you may have done about that natural disaster. Showing judges that you have done research on the natural disaster will show that you have done any necessary research that affects your project. You can't do a project if you haven't done research on the problem you are trying to solve. After you have shown your research on the natural disaster, you must then show how your project will address or help with that natural disaster. Is it a preventative measure or is it a relief measure? How does your project prevent damage or how does it provide relief? Furthermore, you must provide any research that you have done on your project itself. Are there any similar projects out there? In today's world, there are so many intelligent people coming up with new projects every day. For this reason, it is quite hard to find a project that is truly original with no similarities to any other project. But this doesn't mean that you can't be innovative and differ your project slightly to show innovation. For this reason, showing research on similar projects and how your project is innovative and how it differs will show judges that you have tried to be original and you have looked around to see what other projects there are in the field that you are trying to address. After you've presented the general aspect of your project, now we have to get to the specifics. I would recommend starting with the hardware of your project. What components from your Resolute kit are you using and why? Are you using any extra components and why? If you are using an extra component, it's probably because you need a component that isn't included in the Resolute kits. You probably need it to sense a piece of data that the Resolute kits cannot, or maybe you need a new output that can do something that the kits cannot. You need to explain this to the judges so that they can see that you understand why you have added an extra component and why you haven't just used the Resolute kits as they are. Split your components up to the inputs and the outputs. What inputs or sensors are you using in your project? And what sort of data are they collecting? Do you maybe have a temperature sensor that is trying to sense the temperature of the environment around it and why? Do you maybe have an IR remote that you have just added so that you have multiple push buttons to expand the usability of your project? After you've gone through your inputs, you must go through your outputs. What output components do you have and what are you using them to do? Our outputs are what we use to control our robot or our project and what it is physically going to do. Do you have some DC motors so that you can move your robot around? Why do you need to move your robot around? Why can't it just stay still? Are you maybe using a pump to pump water onto a fire? Why do you need a pump and why can't you use a different component? These are all the questions that the judges will be asking, so make sure that you are prepared and that you understand each of the components and why you have used them. After hardware is the code of your project. How does your code operate? Now, the code of your project is going to be very different from any other group. For this reason, you need to decide what is important in your code and what needs to be explained to the judges to show them that you understand how it works. I would recommend going through your code segment by segment rather than line by line. Find a piece of code that does one thing, but it may have multiple lines. Explain the piece of code as a collective rather than line by line, as this will show a deeper understanding and will also save you time in your presentation. Go through any setup that your code may have. Do you use any variables and where do you initialize them? It's also very important to relate your code to your physical hardware as well. If you are using a temperature sensor, show the judges in your code where you are reading that data and where you are using that data. If you have two DC motors, then explain to the judges where you are turning them on and how you use the two motors to turn left or right or go forward. This will show that you understand how your code controls those components or uses those components. Finally, it's a good idea to show any comparisons that you may have in your code. These will normally have to do with your inputs. Are you comparing an input data to another piece of data? Or are you just checking if it is higher or lower than a certain value? This will show that you understand your inputs and why you are using them. But again, I want to emphasize that everyone's code will be very different from one another. You may not have any setup, or you may not have any comparisons. If you don't have that, then you don't need to explain it. All that is important is that you convey understanding of how your code works and how it uses inputs and outputs to achieve your original goal of your project. So thank you so much for watching this video and good luck with preparing for your presentations. I hope to see you all at Roboticon 2024. Join me next time for another video. Goodbye.